Okay, so we've talked about the income side that states operate from. We're now going to take a look at the spending side, the expenditure side. What are states required by either their constitution or by their laws to support financially? And you may or may not be surprised, but whoops there. Elementary and secondary education, by and large, gets the larger amount of the pie. You'll see in this particular example, and by the way, this was across the state. It's a little old, it's 2006, but it's a really nice chart. You'll see that Medicaid, states were paying out 22.3% of all their revenues for Medicaid. Higher education, typically third in the line, the grouping. Other things we must pay for: transportation, our roads, our road system, and yes, we do collect taxes on, for example, trucks have to pay a tax for the use of the roads, and typically those taxes will go to the state and or federal government, and they will then be put back into improving the roads. Definitely transportation is a huge funder, not to nearly the area of elementary and secondary education. Corrections, prisons, another area that we are obligated and required to fund. And not only are we required and obligated to fund, we also have to provide a certain level of existence mandated by laws. When we were going through the equity and adequacy lawsuit in the state, one of the slogans was, students don't have a right to a fair education, but prisoners have a right to fair housing. And it was true. It was legislated. However, not for students. Public assistance and other expenses that the state must pay for. Okay? So that right there is the majority of what states have to use their money for. Oops. Spending decisions. A good state system lets people know how they are using their money, and they are transparent about how they're using their money. Well, we talked about 2009, you saw the charts, and here we are, 2013. Well, this is a chart that looks at fiscal year 2012. Fiscal year 2012, okay? And you'll see over 20% of their budget is deficit, shortfall. Texas, California, Nevada, Oregon, Minnesota. 20%. That's pretty hard to recover from. West Virginia, no shortfall, living within their budget. High Pennsylvania, 10 to 20%. Many other states, under 10%. So that is the reality. Now, you heard a term. Once again, to understand school finance, you have to recognize the terms. You've got to be able to understand the terms. And I use the word fiscal year 2012. I'll bet you Stacy knows about fiscal years. Talk to us about fiscal years. And a fiscal year in the private sector might be different than the fiscal year in the public sector. Go ahead.
Well, right now is the fiscal year in that my work, so it goes from 1/1/2012 to just like your tax year, I guess, to 2012 too.
And you are in a calendar year.
Yes.
You are in a calendar year.
Yeah, but they're like companies like Walmart, I believe, their fiscal year goes, I think, June 30th. So that's how they file their financials.
Okay, so schools, the fiscal year starts July 1st and runs through June 30. So what that means is that if you are buying something in June, that item has to be closed out by June 30th, by and large. And so therefore the books will have to be balanced and those kind of. Now, the federal government is on a different fiscal cycle. They are on a different fiscal cycle. Their cycle runs from October 1st through September 30. That's their fiscal cycle. Causes schools problems because the amount of money you are going to receive in your schools for Title I hasn't been determined until after the school year has started. So what schools do is, number one, they might have some carryover money from the previous fiscal year, and they're allowed to carry over a certain percentage of their money. That's number one. But number two, they advance money from one account into the title account. They pay the salaries, and then when those monies come in, they replenish those salaries. Treasurers are responsible for those kinds of actions. Okay, go ahead, Andy.
Is it every school? I know our school like this. I'm assuming it's every school in Ohio. Each month the same way. Or like we have to close out each month.
Yes.
All 12. So I can't, if I had a purchase order in September, I couldn't have an invoice that said August because I can't pay it.
Interesting. And the answer is no, not every school operates that way. Some schools allow you to have a purchase order that's open for 3 months even. And so.
We can leave ours open as long as we put them in early enough.
Okay. But you're saying you have to be closed out.
Each month it's going to close. I have to, if I had a new invoice that came in, let's say September 30th, and I just got the paperwork on October 2nd, the invoice has to go back to the company. I got to call them. They got to do it for October if they want to get paid.
Wow.
If they did it without a PO number.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty strict, yeah, and not common. That is strict and not common, okay? But you're catching on, some of that terminology is